I agree, Diane. The longer you sit in it, the better. The more of an impact it has. The more that force starts to really, get hold of you. As you know yourself, each session, it's almost like the energy has a specific agenda it wants to work on, and every person in the group is having a different experience. But it's like the longer the sessions go, and the more days, it's like it can get more work done. And as you know, each session, it's a completely different experience from the previous one. I like the longer days, especially in person. The in person intensive we did in London was just amazing. It was mind blowing. But yeah, the LOC doesn't seem to have much of a change, just generally sitting in on the meditations. It's more like I've tested it out with some people, and it seems to jump obviously a lot more when you're doing light transmissions that are just dedicated for that one person. That one transmission, it seems to increase the LOC, whereas the Shaktipat and the Sat Force, it's more of a kind of an overall change in the system. There are a few people whose Kundalini, uh, there's not a whole lot, but there's been a few people that their Kundalini has gone the whole way up, and all of a sudden I'll do the LOC and it's jumped huge when the Kundalini goes all the way up. Well, Desi, all it is a way. It's better for me knowing the LOC. Every time I do a session, I can see the improvement. For people, it just gets in the way. I find an awful lot of people that how they feel and their mood, all depends on if them numbers are going up for them. So I don't really like telling people what their LOC is. I'd rather not. I'd rather just keep it to, I'll check the LOC. I'll keep a score of it. The only two that are important is the 640 self-realization and the unity shift. That's all that's important. All the rest of it, it's just nothing. It's just sure. Well, oh, yeah. So there are people who don't experience shifts. They don't. I've spoke to lots of people. I had one friend the other day. I started working with him. I've known him for years and years and years, and a dedicated spiritual seeker. He's been all around the world. He's been to all different teachers. Started working with me, and we got him up to the 640 and went over, but he didn't experience a shift. And through all the people I've worked with, I keep all that information so I can look at it and I can see the different people. And it's not an exact science, but a lot of people, when they get to 640, they experience some sort of shift in the brain, in the mind. Something snaps, but not everybody has it. So this friend of mine got to the 640, and I kept saying, okay, has anything happened? Anything changed? No, nothing's happened. And trusting I'm trusting my system. I'm trusting, so I just go, okay, look, we're not gonna get caught up in the numbers. We'll just keep going. And I say we done another 2 sessions, and all of a sudden he's come back and he's like, look, I don't know what was supposed to happen at 640, but he goes, there's a really, really thick silence that's come over me in the past couple of days. And he goes, this is like, it's real. It's not going away. It's there all the time. And he's shifted into self-realization and beyond. He's gone into the 700s now, but he can notice that something has changed, even though he's not had that snap. And the reason why I think spiritual seekers don't have that snap, Desi, is because they're continuously going into transcendental states every time they're joining a group like this. You're going into self-realization, whether you know it or not. And what happens is, when it happens then, when you're out in your everyday, walking around, because that's normally when it happens. It doesn't happen in meditation. It normally happens when you're outside, when there's a contrast. it's this, you're continuously going in. It's like little kind of, you're stepping in, you're coming back out, you're stepping in. So when it happens, it's not a big massive jolt to the system. Like you pick up some books and you'll hear people talk about self-realization, who just have a spontaneous awakening, and it sounds phenomenal when they talk about it. But self-realization isn't phenomenal. It's not. There's not a whole lot going on in self-realization, Desi. There's peace there, there's an expandedness, but that's about it. So it's like a lot of people are going into self-realization, they're having a taste of it, every time they join a group like this and join these meditations, they are transcending into self-realization. Whether they stay in it or not, I don't know. They probably come back out, but they're getting tastes of it. In and out, in and out, in and out. And then when it happens, it's not such a big deal. Yeah, it does. It does. And even unity consciousness, when unity consciousness happens, it's if you read about it in the books, it sounds like this great awakening. I mean, it's great for a couple of days, and then it just becomes normal. Really fast. And people are like, well, is this what I read about? Is this, and it's just, it just becomes normal. They all become normal, Desi. Every single shift becomes normal very fast. It doesn't stay the way it is. Like when you have, like, for instance, when I went into unity consciousness, there was this massive explosion inside my brain that went out in all directions. And it was like, whoa, and then it came back in and everything went really quiet and still. But about a week later, it was back to normal. Yeah, and look, that's the nice thing about having the little communities on Telegram, that you can talk to other people who have gone into the unity shift. For anyone we created a small little kind of support group for people who've shifted into unity consciousness, because a lot of people they shift into it and all of a sudden it's like, what do I do with my life, my career? It just. And it seems to happen for everybody. It's just like their jobs start to fall away, relationships start to fall away, and a lot of people, they've no one to reach out to. It's just happened, and yeah, I agree. So it's almost like each time you're doing a light transmission, you're removing layers of dust off a mirror, okay? And it's like you're polishing the mirror, but what happens is you can have that shift into unity, but still have trauma that's really blocking the full unfolding of unity. And exactly what you just said, you're refining the perceptions, and that can take years. That could, to fully refine unity consciousness. And again, the human body is so important because it's all happening through this vehicle, and one of the like diet's important. Everything plays an impact in it. The food we eat, chemicals, hormones in our body, they all have an effect on how this is. Everything has an impact on these states of consciousness. Everything, food. Chemicals, stuff we use on our body, it all has some sort of an impact, negative or positive. And then just overall health, just having a healthy body versus someone who doesn't, and they're both in that same state. The perceptions are more refined in the person who's looked after the body. They've cleaned up the human aspect. All the tricky emotions and trauma and psychological stuff. All of that stuff has to be cleared for it to fully unfold. Otherwise, you just have a partial version of unity. Yeah, it's more of it's almost unity consciousness has like been born again, Lynn, and that's now your new starting point. That's, to me, unity is the first stage of enlightenment. All the rest aren't. They're just different stages of awakening. Or unity is where it starts. Yeah, I mean, To me, all that's important is the first shift, which comes in a snap, which is the self-realization. The self wakes up to the reality of itself. And then the next one is unity consciousness at 1,000. All the rest is just, it really has no... And funny enough, from 800 onwards, I never noticed any difference in any of them different numbers as I went up through them. Nothing. Didn't notice any shift at all. I agree. But there are two definite shifts that do happen along that path. The rest of it, it's completely different. Everybody's is completely different. So it's just okay. For instance, the traditional way of working with Kundalini is, a bottom up awakening. It opens up, at the root chakra. It goes all the way up. The Sat Force seems to be a different path of working with Kundalini. It comes in through the top of the head. It comes down and it actually pulls the Kundalini up. And it's definitely a different, completely different tradition from the yogic Kundalini. It also works on the traumas. It comes down, anything that it finds that's an untruth in your system, it brings up to the surface for you to deal with, to look at. Yeah, well, there's 3 people I know of in the group where the Sat Force has come in through the top of the head and actually pulled the Kundalini the whole way up. Yeah, it seems to be a much more gentle process than the reverse way. The reverse, sure, yeah, pressure in the head, heat in the spine, doesn't seem to happen with the Sat. Yeah, no, it's very gentle, very it's doing the work for you. It's coming down into your system. It's just, all you have to do is just, every time you feel it on the top of your head, is to sit down, allow it to come into your system, allow it to have whatever time it needs to work during the day, because that's what it does. It comes in, 2 or 3 times. People will start to know. A lot of people that I work with will say to me, look, Gar, every day, at this time or that time, this force is coming in at the top of my head. What do I do? And all I say is just sit down and let it come into your system. Let it do whatever it needs to do for that period of time, and then it'll go away. And then you can go on about your work. And each time it's coming in, it's doing something. It's working on traumas. It's bringing up whatever needs to be worked on.